And Audacity in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina, and I'm here with my co host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about why you should actually quit your fat loss goal.
Yeah, you should just quit your journey altogether.
Give up. No, we're just kidding.
Well, yeah. So essentially, some context. We wanted to just touch on when is it appropriate to, like, the best phrasing I have is like throw in the towel, but for the right reasons. And I feel like I struggle with this because I like to be consistent with the identity that I hold, which is I finish what I start. And so anything I start, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what it costs me at this point. I'm going to finish it. Even if it's no longer in alignment, even if it's no longer my goal, even if it's like just not appropriate whatsoever. And that has definitely, like, I've gotten so far into that sunk cost fallacy in the past before. But it really holds you back. And when you realize that sometimes quitting isn't actually quitting, it could be really empowering. So that's the goal today.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, actually, probably a couple months ago, and I asked him a question, and because he had the same thing, it was not related to fitness, but it was just some other aspirations that he had in his life. And he was like, one of the big things that is keeping me from this thing is same thing that you said. It's like, I put it out there. I said I was going to do it. And now if I see that, like, now if I say that I'm not going to do it, then like that means I'm a failure. That means I'm a quitter. And so I was like, well, does this still serve you? And he was like, oh, like I didn't think about it in that sense. It's like, yeah, because if you do this and go through with it, like, is it actually going to make your life better? And he was like, no. I'm like, cool. So
Leave
I
you with
think it's,
that.
yeah. So I think that it's like, and he said, what did he say? I'll try to find the conversation, but anyway, so it's like, yeah, sometimes it can be really, really, really hard for us who are very aspirational. And we actually have a client like that. Well, not a client, we have lots of clients like that, right? It's like, I have this goal. I don't want to change it because if I change it or modify it in any way, that means I'm a failure. And so it's like, well, if you continue down this path, but it ruins your life, like, is it worth it? Like,
Yeah.
would it to say, well, I did it.
Yeah. Um, I feel like this could be really applicable with like weight loss goals in particular. A lot of times people come into a journey with a number in mind, and then they're like, they're seeing awesome results, but it's not the number changes that they had anticipated. And so they're like really hung up on making sure the number gets to where they want it to go. And they're just missing all the amazing progress that they're making. Um, and getting to the number that they think that they want actually would not serve them or be good for them or even in alignment with where they are. And there's just that disconnect. So yeah, there's a lot of situations where this could be the case. I feel like that's one of them. Anytime where you feel like you're just doing something to finish what you started and not because it's actually adding any more to your life. So like that's just, to me, in summation, the like law and the point of diminished returns. Like if you're just past that and you're just doing it because you said that you would, like really evaluate how important that is to you. Or the season of your life is like very, very stressful and it's just not worth it at a point in your life anymore. And maybe you need to put something aside to pursue whatever else you need to take care of. And a lot of times we view that as quitting. And it also doesn't have to be a stop forever. It could be a pause, right? It could be this is not for me right now, but in the future it will be. Or you might find that it's not actually what you wanted in the first place. So that's like the weight loss goal. When the past 2 episodes we've had have been about how your body can change so much when you're not losing weight and how that's the case. And so if you're curious, you can check those out. But like a lot of times you might think you have 50 pounds to lose, but really you have 30 because you built a bunch of muscle, your body composition changed, and you have the body of your dreams 30 pounds down. And 50 wasn't actually what you wanted in the first place. It just took a while to realize it. So those are all the contexts that I could think of. Do you have any more?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about it too from a standpoint that sometimes it's really difficult, especially if you join a coaching program and you have people that are coming into the program either right before or right after you, and you see, oh my gosh, this client lost, this amount of weight in this amount of time, and that client is looking at those success stories and they're like, well, what's wrong with me? Why is my journey not looking like that? And so they sometimes feel, I don't want to say pressured into going into a cut, but they want those results too, which is understandable. Like, and I think the other important thing that we think of when it comes to a client making progress is like, where was their journey? Where was their starting point? And I think that that's really important because again, we talk about this a lot. If you have come into the program and you're eating 800 calories, you're probably not going to lose much weight because you're going to need to reverse. You're like we need to work on building up your metabolism. But if you come into the program and you are maybe 200, pounds and you're eating 4,000 calories, well, you can probably start to make a lot of progress. And so again, we've talked about this on the last episode. If you're 130 pounds, you're not going to have a lot of weight loss like that. You're probably going to be focused more so on body composition. So it can be really, really difficult. But when you're looking at someone's progress, trying to think about, okay, but where was their starting point? It's your beautiful drawing that you made at the presentation, right? It's like, what does the journey look like before the client came into the program? And so I think that sometimes is hard for clients looking at other clients to think about.
Yeah, yeah, and just that comparison and just staying
Mm-hmm.
focused on themselves. So yeah, those are all different situations where quitting might be warranted. But I think, yeah, we were just kind of talking about how like it's diminished returns or it's not serving you anymore. Like the example with your friend was perfect, I feel like. But I guess like really challenging the thought process of just because you stop pursuing something that you are a failure or you couldn't finish what you started. And I think the circumstances all differ, right? Because there's obviously situations that can probably make it look like you're quitting more than others. However, I feel like you just really have to look inward at yourself and ask yourself that hard question or hard questions. Like, is this serving me? What do I truly want? What's in alignment with my goals? So, like, my example would be the pivotal moment at which I decided to go all in on my business, like all in, all in. And I was halfway through a master's degree. And I don't really know if I've told this story on here, like specifically, but it was like I started becoming aware that like business mentorship and business growth was a thing. And I didn't have to just like learn how to do this coaching business thing all on my own. And I was halfway through the master's. I had just transferred schools from an in-person one to an online one because I just wanted more freedom and flexibility. I hadn't started with the online school yet, but it was like weeks away. And I found the opportunity to join the business mentorship. And I just remember feeling so torn. And I just continued justifying it as like well, I'll just put it on pause. Like I just said, like there was like 8-week little semesters, if you call them, that the school did. So you take one class at a time, 8 weeks at a time. And I was like, well, if I start this business thing now, it's 12 weeks long. So in 12 weeks, 4 plus 8, I'll be done. They'll be enrolling for the next like little semester thing, the next class. And I can just jump right back in after these 12 weeks, which was really funny that I thought that way at that point. But I did that and then I got past the 12 weeks and I was like, holy cow, I have so much on my plate now. The business is growing like crazy. I didn't even know this was possible. There's no way that I can do this. So I like pushed it off again. And in my head, I was like, you're going to go back. You're going to go back. You're going to finish. You're going to finish. Like, that's who you are. That's what you do. You're going to finish your master's. And it was this thing where like on my profiles, I'd put like like master's degree in progress, like on my credentials and everything. And that lingered for like 2 years. And then eventually I was in a season recently of just kind of like clearing the shit and the clutter out of my life. And that thing was hanging over my head. I was like, ugh, master's degree. Should I do it? Should I go back? And I just really had to ask myself, like, what the heck am I going to do with a master's in exercise science and sports nutrition? That, like, I'm only coaching 7 people right now who, like, we've been working together for a year minimum for every single one of them. What am I going to use it for? I have coaches on my team that teach me more on a daily basis about coaching than I would learn from a master's degree. And in fact, I need to learn more business, more marketing, more sales to make the business go where it needs to go. And I was like, I don't think this is it. Like, it's not for me anymore. I have no desire to go back and learn that kind of stuff. I enjoy learning about it, but just not in that way, not reading research papers and all that stuff. So I
And then
finally closed it.
I think at that point too, it's like, at this point now I'm just doing it because I said I was going to do it. It's not
Or
because
thinking
I
about doing it.
yeah, but if you were to go back and complete it, it's not because you want to do it, you're excited to do it, it would serve you in any way. It's
Oh my God.
just
Yeah.
because and it's like, do I really want to spend like thousands of dollars just to check done, I did it, and there's no reason for it.
Yeah. I think it would have been like another $15,000 to like complete the degree. And like I'd have resentment the whole time. Like, this sucks. This is
Yeah.
boring. I don't like this. This is taking away from all the other things I need to do. And I really thought about it. And I was like, honestly, the only thing that I'd want to go back to school for at this point would be like adding on to my bachelor's in neuroscience, something like neuropsychology, behavior change, like something that would actually benefit coaching and leading people so much more than just like, here's vitamin A versus vitamin D. Like, yeah, it would be so much more impactful. So I'd have to start from scratch. So I basically was like, close the loop. I'm never going back. And I said it, I established it, and I was like, that's it. And I actually felt lighter. I was just like, oh, I don't feel disappointed in myself like I thought I would. And I think it's because it's like when you really know in your heart that something is no longer for you and it doesn't make you any better, it doesn't serve you, you can like actually let go. But you just have to have the hard conversations to get there.
Yeah, I really like that. And so when it comes to fat loss, and I know that we've said this in very recent episodes, but walking away from a fat loss goal, you're gonna do like, you can make a lot of progress not dieting. So for you to walk away from a dieting phase, like, it's not a bad thing. And it also doesn't mean that you're not going to continue to make progress. Like, we have seen this time and time again with clients who end their fat loss phase, reverse diet, eat more food, and they continue to lose weight. So that's also something really, really important, that you do not always have to grind, and like literally like put yourself into the dirt to see progress, because I know that specifically women, we have this tendency that like more is better, more steps, more exercise, like less food. Like, this needs to be intense. And that is not always the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like at that point, it's just a matter of labeling. It's just like you called it dieting. And now we're just calling it like a lifestyle, like a couple tweaks or whatever. But it's like the fact that the word dieting had so much meaning to you of like misery and grind and all that. But it's like you're actually not changing most of the behaviors that you're doing. You're just changing the degree to which you're performing them at. And that could actually benefit your metabolism, your body composition, your results better than before. But because we're not calling it fat loss, like, then our mindset changes so much. It's like, oh, I'm in a maintenance phase. Well, then I'm going to go have 10 drinks on the weekend and I'm going to, eat all the things. screw it, it's maintenance, I can just chill. And it's like, that's actually not what this is for. And if we were following it, we'd be seeing some kick-ass results. But it's like the idea of quitting would like elicit all that stuff. It would elicit that kind of self-sabotaging response versus really understanding where you need to go and what it's going to do for you.
Yeah. So we do want to talk about like the situations in which this would be the case, like where like we've seen with like certain clients as far as like walking away from XYZ.
Yeah, I mean, in fitness, I feel like there's only a few, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, so it's just I think the one thing is diminished returns, right? Like, and we've talked about this on the episode. Like, is it really 5 pounds? Like, is the juice like worth the squeeze? And so it's like if you are having to spend extra time doing additional cardio or getting in some additional steps or whatever that may be, but it's starting to take away from other areas of your life and you're miserable and you feel like you can't do anything. And hopefully that's not the point if you're a lifestyle client. But if you get to that point, it's like, okay, well, is that really worth it? Is losing another couple pounds like and feeling stressed and feeling low energy, like, is that worth it to be 2 pounds less, 3 pounds less?
Yeah, it's just like you always have choices, right? Like it's just you get to choose what negative things you want to live with. So like on one hand, you could live with the negative thing of all your time is spent doing cardio, meal prepping, spending your time and energy towards fitness, and maybe you could get that physique, those results, and like look the way you want to look perfectly. And that has a cost, right? But then on the other side, maybe that's not worth it to you. Maybe your true values in life are like spending time with family and like relaxing and going out to eat. And it's like, well, if those are your core values, then if you're not going to sacrifice like everything, then there is a there's a limit to probably the kinds of results you can achieve. And that I hate saying that because I don't like saying like you can't achieve your goals. And I think it can often be confused for like someone thinking like, oh, well, weight loss isn't meant for me. It's like, no, we're talking about really small like end percentages of the goal. So like you lost 50, but you wanted 55, or you lost 90, but you wanted 100, right? You got to 22% body fat, but you wanted 18. Like that's what we're talking about, not like unhealthy to healthy. Like I see people kind of get in this mindset with themselves when they're at a place where there are definitely things that could be worked on, changed, improved. They are 30+% body fat. They have a significant amount of weight to lose, but because they don't know the tools and the strategies and the skills, they feel like, oh, well, like then it's just not worth it because they think that they have to be super rigid to get to their goal. That is not the case. That is not what we're talking about. That you just need a sustainable framework and approach that you probably have never tried before and someone to actually meet you where you're at, which is what Christina and I do. But if you are like 99% of the way there, that's when it's like, are you like, do you really need that? Like, are you sure?
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's also, and I think that it goes right into like also just like if you're in a season of life where it's just not conducive to being a fat loss goal, like you're really, really, really having to grind. And this is not to say that you shouldn't do things that are challenging or hard, but it's just if it's like, if you are, again, we talk about like moving across the country. And I know I always bring up being a CPA, but it's like, if you're in busy season, it's like you literally are at work for like 14 hours. Like, I don't know where you would get the time to also sleep and eat and then also try to work out or do any sort of cardio. It's like, it's probably not a good time. And so it is okay to recognize like, okay, this is there, like being in a fat loss phase, like it is not going to serve me. Like that is not going to bring me any sort of positive in my life right now.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, like this is not for like what we're not saying is that if you're really, really busy, that you just shouldn't even try, right?
Right. Right.
Because more than likely you don't have adequate systems and time management skills and frankly emotional regulation tools in place to be able to manage the demand on your plate and reduce overwhelm and be productive and focused. Most people really suck at being productive and focused, including myself. So I'm not just saying like I'm better than you. Like I am really working on that right now. But I think that's really a differentiator of like just because you're really busy and overwhelmed does not actually mean that we're talking to you about this. It's like, this is the person that is like already tracking their macros, already doing cardio and workouts, and then like they have like 3 jobs and like one of them's going ape shit, and then they're in a relationship issue, and then on top of that something else is happening. It's like that is the person where it's like, okay, is that really worth it? So I always like to just play devil's advocate because I'm like, people are going to try to use this as like, oh, I'm not meant for this. I can't make this change. But it's a very specific, like, it's really, really pushing the limits of like your mental health, the quality of your life is just going to take a significant toll if you go that extra mile.
Yeah. And so I think, yeah, kind of like what we were saying, it's like, it's not this all or nothing thing. It's not like I'm doing health and fitness or I'm not. And so, like you were saying, that context of like, you already have someone who has those habits in place. They're cognizant and they're aware and they're eating the balanced meals and everything. But it's like, but it's probably not a good idea to like to be in a fat loss phase and continuing with that. So it's like the added
Mhm.
stress because that's something that like we talk about a lot with our clients. It's like dieting is putting your body in a stressful situation. You're reducing your calories, you're typically doing a little bit more cardio, right? Like you're increasing the stressor. And if you have a lot of other stressors going on, you're not sleeping really well, you're not managing stress, like you're not recovering well. It's like if you continue to push on, like again, it's those diminished returns, like you're not really going to get anything out of pushing forward. So it's actually going to serve you better to scale back a little bit and to work on other areas of your life. And again, this is not saying that we're turning health and fitness off. We're not doing it anymore. It's just we're just scaling back.
Yeah, just a little bit, just to like whatever is maintainable in that season. And I think spending that extra time and energy, like I'm just like really hung up on this because I think it's so true that one of the issues that people come across when it comes to like achieving really high achieving goals with their health and their fitness while balancing everything else, because like you look at social media and there are people that do it. It's like the David Goggins, right? Or the Joe Rogan has so much on his plate. Like, how does he do it? How does he stay in shape? How does he like, or whoever, I don't know, whatever celebrity you want to say. And there are people who, they're at the top of their game in what seems every area of their life. A, that may not be true and you don't know, but B, if that was true, the reason would be is because they've increased their capacity and tolerance for stress by time management system, emotional regulation tools, being able to like just not get overwhelmed, stay focused, stay productive. And it's like you don't build that by pushing yourself to like burnout. You do that by like being able to sustain balancing a bunch of things to the best of your ability and then like slowly taking steps forward in every area of your life. So like in a sense, scaling back when you're like on the brink of burnout could be the first step towards like sustainably increasing your capacity and in the long run being able to tolerate more, maintain a better physique, get to that end goal because you didn't rush for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. So the next thing we had planned on was like it's not actually what you wanted in the first place. And I know that sometimes we'll get clients that come to us and they have a goal and we're like, well, why is that your goal? And they're like, I don't know. So and so told me that I needed to do this. And so it's like, oh, okay, but like, what do you want to do? And so it's like, if you are pursuing fat loss because someone else told you to do it and that's not what you want, like probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about this one person that like, she's been a client for a long time with us before, um, for a while, but she essentially, we had our first like discovery call, and I was like, so why do you want to do this? And she was like, well, because my family said this and these people said that, and I need to do it for this part of my job and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, why do you want to do this? And she was like, I don't know. And like that tone too, just like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't think we should move forward today. And she was like, oh, like, okay, that's fine. And I was like, not because I don't like you. Like, I think we can help, but like, it doesn't really seem like you want this. And she was like, you're right. And then like 2 months later, she was like, hey, I'm ready for this. Thanks for giving me the time and patience. Like, let's do this. And then she's been a kick-ass client ever since. And I think a lot of that just comes from realizing what you really want. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away from something. Just because you thought it was a goal doesn't mean it has to be the one for you. Again, just looking internally at what do you want? What's in alignment with your values and your goals? And if yes, full speed ahead. If no, just wait on that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we can chat about too, like, okay, so what might pivoting or changing your goals look like and why that isn't failure or why that isn't quitting. So we did talk a little bit about how like, okay, so I said that I wanted to lose 50, but it was actually 30 because I put on muscle. And I think that sometimes it is really difficult for people to be like, well, I wanted to check that box. I wanted to say that I did this. And
Yeah.
so kind of talking about that like reframe of again, why this isn't quitting, like because again, we've got clients who are in this situation and it's really, really hard for people who have that perfectionistic tendency that I finish what I start type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, how does it look when it changes? Like, I mean, it's just, I think a big part of it is like changing that like self-talk aspect from like, I'm someone who finishes what I start to
Mm,
I'm someone who goes full force towards the things that truly matter to me and add to my life. Like, see the difference there? Like, they have the same essence of like, you are a go-getter, you do the things and you do the hard things, but you don't do the hard things that don't matter and don't serve you, because that's kind of dumb. So I feel like it's just shifting that, because like that's something I would always say about myself. I finish what I start, I finish what I start. And I realized it was causing me to like have all this shit hanging over my head that was just like books I haven't finished, the degree I didn't finish, like other things. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so not me right now. It's like, no, they just didn't matter enough. And that's okay.
yeah, I really, really like that. And I think that's a good reframe for clients because it's like, I know that that can be really, really difficult. And again, it's, even if you do walk away from this, you're probably going to make more progress in the long run than not digging yourself like into the ground, into the dirt.
Totally. Yeah. Especially when it's a matter of sustainability and like that is at stake and you're like burnout is at stake. That's a good time to take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Were you? Yeah. I don't know if I have anything else.
I don't know how else it would look if you changed your mind on a goal. So
Yeah, cool. Well, hopefully you were able to take a listen to this and feel like you're able to make some reframes if this resonated with you at all, or maybe it will in the future. But we hope that you enjoy this episode. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Crystalline Fit. Marissa is at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope to see you back next week.